In a world full of racists, Light thinks he's found a good party, but they betray him and are about to kill him. However, Light gets saved because of sheer luck and learns that he has the potential to be overpowered in this world, so he gets ready to take his revenge. In the beginning, there was nothing. The world was a light tempest until the goddess shed light upon it and gave rise to a continent where 9 races were born. The Dragonutes, the Elves, the Unifolk, the Dwarves, the Dimmican, the Light Elves, the Centaurs, the Beastfolk, and humans. A boy happily says goodbye to his family and remarks that he'll become an adventurer and make it so they all can live comfortably. The boy. Light registers at a guild and says his gift is called Unlimited Gacha. He shows that he just rolls a gacha, takes the card he gets and receives something from it. However, he can only get extremely useless items in front of her, so she says F rank is best for him. Light asks if he can take any jobs right away, so she points him to the bulletin board nearby and tells him there's firewood gathering, soil hauling, and turf cutting. Light does these jobs and later sees that working all day only earned him enough for lodging. He accidentally bumps into a beastman who angrily tells him to watch where he's going and decides to take his money as compensation. Light hurriedly tries to stop him, but the man knocks him down and says he'd be lucky to rent a pigsty with this kind of chump change. As they leave, an elven woman asks Light if he's okay. Light takes her hand to get up but hurriedly lets G since he's dirty. Seeing his scared face, the woman hugs him and introduces him to the people behind her. She says they belong to the Concord of Tribes. A beastman explains that their party represents all 9 of the races created by the goddess and introduces himself as Guru. The elf says she's the Dragonute is Drago, the Demonkin is Diablo, the Unifolk is Obero, the Dwarf is Nano, the Light Elf is San, and the Centaur is Santor. All they need is a human, and they'll become the perfect party of adventurers. Cyan reveals that they want to make a fair world with no discrimination, and they welcome Light to the Concord of Tribes, so he happily agrees. Later, as the party is in the largest and toughest dungeon in the world, the Abyss, Sasha warns Light to be careful. They head further into the dungeon, but Drago suddenly says they should stop here. Light cheerily decides to start making tea for them, but Drago says that won't be necessary and suddenly reveals that they're banishing him from the party. Stunned, Light says he doesn't understand and asks what he did, so Garu declares that it's because he's useless to them now. Light hurriedly says he doesn't get it and says they were so nice to him before, so Garu says they were faking it because they wanted his gift in his party. He reveals that their superiors thought Light might be a Mastro, so they recruited him and kept a close eye on him. Light says they already knew his Unlimited Gacha was a worthless gift that did nothing, so Garu agrees and tells him that's why he's dead weight now. Drago says they should finish Light off before any adventurers show up, so Garo slashes at Light's face. Shocked, Light starts desperately running away, but Sasha shoots him in the leg like he's some animal. Gara kicks him in the stomach and starts beating him up, but Sasha tells him to quit giving him injuries since their cover story is supposed to be that he died to a monster. As Garu is about to kill him, Light slowly tries to crawl away from him and frustratingly questions why he has to die. He suddenly realizes he's on a teleportation trap, so Garu rushes to kill him before he can escape, but Light instantly disappears. Light finds himself in another part of the dungeon but mutters that he's still gonna die the second he runs into one of the crazy monsters down here. He can't believe this was all a lie and angrily declares that he'll kill them all. He suddenly realizes a level 1000 monster is behind him and questions how that's even possible when these are the kind of monsters you only hear of in folk tales. Light realizes all he has is his skill, Unlimited Gacha, and hurriedly uses it to try and get something. Just as the monster is about to attack him, a girl suddenly appears and says she has no mercy for those who threaten her master. She instantly kills the monster with a swipe of her hand and heals Light, and she apologizes for not asking for his permission first and says she just couldn't bear to see him looking so injured. She asks if he can tell her his name, so he says it's Light. Hearing this, the girl pledges to serve him till death and introduces herself as Mai, the ever-seeking maid who's at level 9999. Shocked, Light says his Unlimited Gacha was basically worthless, so there's no way someone as incredible as her could ever come out of it. She asks him to please call her by her name and asks if she can use her appraisal skill to check the finer details of his Unlimited Gacha. Light agrees, so May tells him his abilities are hidden under a heavy layer of conceals, so it's impossible for anyone who's not at her level to even see the details. May explains that Light's gift, the Unlimited Gacha, can be rolled an infinite number of times. The odds and rarities of the cards it produces vary based on surrounding mana density, so he has much better odds of rolling a rare card here than on the surface. However, she admits encountering any monsters could prove fatal given his current stats, rats, but tells him to have no fear, since she'll be with him at all times from here on out. However, Light frustratingly says he got betrayed by a party and was on the verge of being killed by his own friends. He tearfully asks how they could treat him like that, just because he's human and wanted to provide for his family. Mei suddenly embraces him and apologetically admits she could never understand the depth of the suffering he's been through. However, with her power at his disposal, taking revenge is a simple matter. She asks him to issue the order so that she can hunt them down. However, Light says the only reason he got betrayed was because he was weak, so he needs to toughen up. He says it might be impossible, but he wants to get revenge on his own and asks Mei if she thinks that could happen. She says she believes in his potential more than anything, so he happily thanks her. 3 years later, in the deepest part of the abyss, Light walks in front of 2 rows of maids and tells them all they did great work today, so they happily start cheering in happiness. As they walk through town, the civilians happily greet Light. He asks Mei what the other members of the quartet are up to, so she says they're carrying out their missions, and Oyuki has been scouting the upper perimeter and making maps. Ellie's been working hard to develop new magic in line with his grand plan, and Nizuna's patrolling the grounds as usual. They run into Jack and Light starts training with him. The maids meet Nizuna and praise her a bit before asking if she can patrol a top-secret spot for them. Nizuna goes to Light's room and finds Mei inside. She asks what she's doing here since Light is training with Jack right now, so Mei hurriedly says she was cleaning up. Nizuna tells her some maids wanted to pass on a message to her and said they want everybody to have the right to clean Light's room. However, Mei says this is her responsibility as head maid, so she'll personally address the fairy maids and their problems. She gives Nizuna a tip, so Nizuna happily tells her to just call if she ever needs her help and leaves. She gets herself some snacks and meets Oyuki, but she can't understand what she's saying. Nizuna tells her to not hesitate on her if she needs her help, so Oyuki finally relents and says she finished part of the map Mei wanted and came back to deliver it. Nizuna goes to Light's throne and happily sits on it, saying Light looks really cool when he sits here. However, she accidentally breaks the wing of one of the angels stuck to the chair, so she hurriedly puts it back on and runs away. After training, Jack and Light go to the hot bath, and he tells Light he's pretty much mastered using his body as a weapon, and only a select few can hold their own against him here in the abyss, means there are even less on the surface. Mei summons the maids and recites what Nizuna told her, so they hurriedly apologize and say they simply wanted to help lighten her load. Mei says their demands are rejected and assigns them to clean the hallways that lead to the throne room, but they must do it entirely by hand. She says she expects to work diligently in her absence, since she'll soon be going to the surface on a mission for Light. Nizuna runs into Ellie, who happily says she'll book a private room for her and Light to have dinner together, and so Nizuna annoyingly says she wants to have tea with Light, too. The maids annoyingly question why they're the ones getting in trouble and say there's nothing wrong with complaining about how they're managed, but they admit Mei's pretty much untouchable for them. They remember that Mei was the first summon for Light, and she's heard it took 3 months before Oyuki was summoned as the second one. So does that mean they were all by themselves until then? And start cursing her, but Mei suddenly enters. She reveals that she was passing through on her way out when she heard a few choice words that seemed directed at her. They hurriedly assure her that's not it and say they were just a bit jealous since Mei was the first one to get summoned. Mei says she doesn't have any obligation to share this, but the 3 months before Oyuki was summoned were spent Light reading all manner of books the entire time and practicing every kind of martial art, so there was never time for them to do any of the. She reveals that she stopped by here because she felt she might have been too hard on them, but she was clearly mistaken, so she's assigning them to clean the throne room as well. As the maids are hurriedly cleaning the throne room, the wing to an angel suddenly gets knocked off by one of them. Nizuna lies down in bed and wishes Light had given her the order to go the surface and steamroll all the stupid losers up there. Later, Light runs into Ellie, Nizuna, and Oyuki and sees them arguing before a hellhound appears in front of them. Light remarks that he still trembles with fear when he sees one due to the trauma from that day, but the 3 girls angrily tell it to prepare to be crushed by the might of their level 9999 power. The hellhound gets scared, so Light apologizes to it on their behalf and tells the girls he just got word from Mei that it's time to put their plan into motion. They happily agree, so Light says it's time to go and serve his first dish of revenge that's been 3 years in the making. In a town filled with beast folk, the civilians happily greet Garo as he walks by before he knocks down a human looking for food. In a bar, he tells his men to order whatever they want and says he's got fact stacks for days. He says he got where he is now by picking only the best of jobs. His men ask about the job from 3 years ago, but he says the Federation demands secrecy on that one, remarking that that was the cutest job of them all. All he had to do was kill the pathetic human kid who was suspected to be a mastro. It kind of bothered him that they never found Light after he teleported, but there's no way he survived. As they're drinking, May suddenly approaches them. As May is walking with Garo's party in the abyss, he says the spot is not that far now. In a flashback of the bar, May tells Garo she's been searching for Light for some time now, and as it so happens, Light is a key figure of a noble descent. Garo doesn't believe her, but remarks that if she is telling the truth, he'll get a load of cash. She says she'd like to check the place where Light was last seen alive for herself and says she's prepared to pay him 3 gold bars for this. Garo wonders if this is a trap, but remarks that even if it is, a single girl doesn't pose much of a threat. Garo agrees and says the money doesn't even play a factor here. Light was like his little brother, so he'll gather a pack of his most elite men and escort her through the danger-infested dungeon known as the Abyss. Presently, he remarks that he'll make sure she reaches her goal without a scratch. Then, he'll ravish the hell out of her right on top of Light's grave. May says her heart breaks for Light, brought to this dismal and grimy dungeon, only to get betrayed by vile scum and beaten within an inch of his life. Garo hurriedly gets back and wonders how she knows about that, since the only people who know about what happened here are the members of the Concord tribe and a few higher-ups. However, Light suddenly tells May to calm down because Garo is his. Stunned, Garo says this can't be real and asks Light how he's not dead, so Light cheerily says he's here to get payback with 3 years of interest. However, Garo laughingly asks how a puny level 15 human like him thinks he can get payback against a level 150 like him. 2 beastmen start running towards Garo, but Mai effortlessly slashes both their heads off. Light thanks her and asks her to go block the exit for me, so she agrees. The beastmen and Garo rush towards Light at once, but he easily knocks them all back and asks Garo if he's done already. Garo hurriedly curses at him and summons his level 500 beast, Fenrir. However, Light says only level 500 is pitifully weak and tells him to do whatever he wants, promising that he won't move a foot from here. Fenrir attacks him with a blast, and Garo thinks he's dead, but is shocked to see that Light's unharmed. Light says it's his turn now and decides to show Garo the real deal. He summons Primal Wolf God, Fenrir, a level 9000 beast, and orders it to kill the Mutso. It just breathes in its direction, instantly destroying it. Garo can't believe it, so Light decides to show him his current level and reveals that it's 9999. Stunned, Garo realizes he's dead meat and gets down on his knees. He hurriedly begs for forgiveness and says he had no choice but to follow orders from the Federation like their laptop. Light orders him to tell him everything he knows about the Mastro. Garo says they were just ordered to go find one and assures him he doesn't know anything else. The beastmen tell Garo they have the answers, but one of them tells them to stop lying, so May instantly slashes their bodies into pieces and says any attempts to deceive Light will be met with the death sentence. Light says he has one more question for him and asks if he thinks they could win if they launched a war against the surface world. He adds that he shouldn't bother lying since May can tell, so Garo says he's sure the battle would go in his favor at the outset, but no matter how high his level. He's still just one person, so he's afraid he might have a hard time against all the nations. Light says that's what he'd assumed, and he has more questions, but they'll teleport first. Garo is shocked to find that they're in a gigantic throne room with armies of warriors who bow down in front of Light. Light tells them to rise and display their stats, and they're all above 1000. Garo can't believe his eyes as Light asks if he thinks he now stands a good chance at winning. Light says his face tells him all he needs to know and congratulates Garo since he's earned the reward of languishing in pain and despair far worse than death. Garo slowly asks Light if he's trying to become a god, so Light says he does like the sound of death, but the world has a chance to prove what it deserves by answering the question he poses. Light happily returned to his hometown, but realized that during the 2.5 years it took for him to return from the Abyss, his hometown had been decimated by forces unknown. Now, 6 months later, the only saving grace is that the bodies of his siblings were never found, so he hopes that they're alive. Gold and start arguing over who's more loyal to Light, and Gold points out that unless they want a Light to be knacked from a bad night's sleep. They should avoid camping. Light says they should focus on intel first, even though they could just march into war right now. He says he's betting the destruction of his hometown is connected to the fast he was suspected of being a mastro, so he wants to know what the importance of a mastro is, and if the truth behind everything ends up being evil, he'll turn this world into a burning hellscape. As they're flying, Nimumu asks what their first order of business is, so Light reminds her to call him Dark here, and says he's going to register as an adventurer and raise his rank by doing guests first. They see a parent and child being threatened by robbers and effortlessly defeat them, so the man offers to give them to the town, Dagus. When they reach the gate, they decide to get off, so the man, Colonel, thanks them for their help and asks them to stop by his hotel if they plan on staying the night. They head to the guild to get registered, and Nimumu can't believe they're being assigned the F rank, so the receptionist tells them everyone starts from the same rank. Light says he's fine with starting with F rank and registers. Outside, Nimumu sadly questions how she could screw up so badly that Light had to apologize for her, so tells her to not let it get her down. They go to Colonel's hotel and Light asks if he can make a few selfish requests. Light says he'd like to rent out the entire top floor and asks Colonel if he can tell the staff to not set food there, they're including their stay. He gives him a pouch of gold and offers to give him more if that's not enough, but Colonel hurriedly says he can't accept money from them in good conscience after they saved after his and his child's life, but Light asks him to consider this a request as well. As they get settled in their rooms, Nimumu suggests that Light could just issue them orders from the Abyss, but Light asks if she's trying to cut him out of his own revenge plan. She hurriedly apologizes and admits she was out of line, but Light apologizes to her and admits his emotions got the better of him, even though she was just thinking of his safety. Still, she asks him to allow her to perform a Pledge of Allegiance again and performs a weird ritual, after which they head out. They reach the dungeon and are surprised by how long the queue is. Light asks Nimumu if she's sure they need to stand out like this, so she assures him her responsibility is to cover his back and make sure he's safe at all times. A party cuts the queue and gets in front of them, so Light remarks that the one carrying the bag must be a servant. The other seems to be decently trained but has a lot of openings, and the guy at the front carries himself with incredible sharpness despite the hefty weapon on his back. The group in front of them is worryingly wondering if they should say something, so Light tells the three men it's 3 men of form to cut the line like that. The man annoyingly asks if he even knows who messing with, so Light says even if he's somehow famous, that's all the more reason he shouldn't do such cheap things. Gold agrees, and Nimumu asks the man if he's just too stupid to understand how lines work. The man angrily says no wretched humans can talk to him like that, but his party member stops him from reaching for his sword and says that would be overkill, so they frustratingly go to the back of the line. Once they've gone, the other adventurers around them praise Light, Gold and Nimumu for chewing them out like that, and the party in front of them thanks Light, admitting that they didn't say anything since they were scared. One of them, Jimra, asks Gold if his armor's truly made out of gold, but Nimumu confirms that it's not and says it's pointless to make armor out of something as malleable as gold. They ask Light if this is his first time attempting this dungeon. Light confirms this, so they tell him that the floors of this particular dungeon are far more expansive than any others, so it's commonplace for adventurers to camp inside. The party goes into the dungeon, so Nimumu wonders if they should carry some fake luggage to look the part, and Light agrees that they'll have to think about it. They're surprised by the view inside the dungeon, and Gold says he doesn't sense anyone within their immediate surroundings. They start flying in the air and conceal themselves, while the elven man from before angrily kills a group of monsters and questions what they think he is, declaring that he's the youngest, most elite warrior among the Elven Queendom's White Knights. Kaito, the legendary hero with the bloat of a mastro. Yannick tries to calm him down and says they should just press on, but Kaito tells him to shut up. Those godforsaken bottom feeders had to go insult him, and his low level of 1500 is to blame for all of it. He frustratingly says all he needs to do is level up and smother everyone who made fun of him. Yannick says he sympathizes with his situation, so Kaito tells him to hurry up and make him level up faster. Yannick says he has no qualms about putting the results of his research to good use for him, so Kyo remarks that he can't trust Yannick and decides to bury him once he's helped him level up. Meanwhile, Light's party takes down a group of giant monsters, so he says they should just collect the magi gems and call it a day now, since they only need to show proof of them reaching the 3rd floor. And all this fighting has gotten him dirty. Nemumu happily says she can make sure he's squeaky clean by washing every inch of his body, and when they get to the 1st floor, Light says they should walk a bit, otherwise people might notice them. As they're flying, they spot the party that was in front of them and realize they're surrounded by goblins. The party takes the goblins down and are surprised to see Light's party behind them, so Light says staying focused on your opponent is a fundamental part of battle, but they also shouldn't let that stop them from watching their back. They realize a bush snake was near them, and Light says a bite from one of these can paralyze you for a short time. They gratefully thank him before Light says they have company. A horde of great bush wolves suddenly rushes towards them, so they decide to retreat, since they can't beat them. However, Light says they're not the problem, as the wolves, surprisingly, just run past them. They suddenly hear something huge rushing towards them, and brace themselves. A quadside the mantis suddenly emerges out of the forest, shocking them. One of the boys says this doesn't make any sense, since the mantis was supposed to have been exterminated 10 years ago. He hurriedly tells Mia to fire some magic at it and asks Light to help them, since they just need to throw it off balance so that they can make a run for it. Light asks if they won't mind if they hunt it for themselves. The boy hurriedly says fighting that thing is a death sentence, so they have to hurry back to town and let the guild know, but Light believes they'll be just fine. Gold fights the mantis and is surprised to see that it took blows from him without a scratch, so Lach says they'll see how it fares against him and uses fire arrow. They can help, but Golden tells them to just watch and learn and says he'll teach them how a proper knight wields their weapons on the battlefield. The mantis attacks Gold, but he blocks and its pincer gets shattered. He tells the adventurers that Legion 1 is that all it takes is a time counter to turn their shield into a mighty weapon. Lesson 2 is to strike with your sword when you catch your opponent on the hop. Light says it's his turn now and unleashes several fire spells at it, saying it won't be able to swat them away like before since he's taken total control of them now. As the mantis is about to collapse, it hurriedly runs away, so Light mutters that it's smarter than he gave it credit for. Even so, he releases Firewall, trapping the mantis in with them. The mantis tries flying away, but Nemumu rushes into the air and slashes through it. Gold says she made a mess of all the useful parts and asks how they're supposed to sell it now, so she hurriedly starts apologizing as the party watches. Ino and Mia says she can't believe the 3 of them actually beat a quadside the mantis. They still manage to find the magic gem and the mantis remains, so the party leader asks if they're from a famous party of adventurers and questions if they're A or B rank. However, Light says they're all F ranks who just got their start. Mia makes a water ball for them to wash their hands in, so Light says he appreciates it, but the leader says they should be thanking them for saving their lives. He says they're going to make camp for the night around here soon and asks if they want to join them, but Light says they don't want to be a burden to them. The leader insists since the sun will set soon, so they agree. Later, as they set camp, Mia is worried that she's useless compared to Light, but her brother reminds her that she's good enough for referral to get the Duchy's Academy of Magecraft and says he's sure the day will come when she's casting tactical class spells herself. Gold says she must be a great mage to get invited to the world's most prestigious academy for magecraft. The leader reveals that they lost to their parents to an epidemic, which is why he and Mia formed this party with their childhood friends, Jimra and Wordy, to make what they need to get by. Maya tells them to not do anything crazy, since she's happy just hanging out with them. Seeing them talk, Light remembers his sister and says he knows they'll succeed in their endeavors, especially since it's clear just how talented Maya is. Meanwhile, Kaio defeats another monster, but angrily tells Yannick his sword is a prestigious weapon, not a cleaver to cut useless monsters down with. Yannick asks him to calm down and says they must collect these samples to further his research. He adds that their next step is to gather the primary material for his experiment humans, so Kaito smilingly says they should begin the hunt. Later, the receptionist happily thanks Light for bringing yet another big haul. The adventurers around them are surprised by how many gems they're handing in and gossip about how this is the party took down than a quadside the mantis 2 weeks ago. Outside, as Light and the others are walking, a pair of adventurers ask if they're the Black Motley, since that's what the people around town are calling them. They introduce themselves as Sullivan and Gilbert and assure them they're just trying to be nice and rooting for them. Light doesn't understand what they mean, so Sullivan Sullivan says, somebody has to prove that humans can compete with the other races too. They head into the dungeon and Light overhears a dwarf annoyingly saying humans always say the stupidest stuff. He bets all the talk about them defeating a mantis is just hot air so Light and the others see that they have no respect for them. Later in the dungeon, Light tells Nimumu and Gold they should start by going down to the 5th floor. They run into the party from before and cheerily greet them, so Mia nervously gives them something as her way of saying thanks. She reveals that it's an ointment for burns. It won't get rid of scaring, but it can hopefully help manage the pain a little. Light happily takes it and thanks her before gifting her a bracelet. Later, as they're flying, Nimumu asks Light if he's sure that was wise, since he gave her the SSR wish bracelet, which hardly seems like a good trade for some homemade ointment. She thinks bro got scammed. Light says he thought it was perfect for her, and Gold says he can tell Light specifically picked it out for Maya since it can make small miracles happen if one wishes strongly enough. It's snowing in the 5th floor, so Light tells Gold and Nimumu that they'll be in charge of hunting the Yetis they need before teleporting into the throne room. The girls welcome him back and Maya asks if Operation Adventurer is proceeding well as she serves him tea, so Light confirms that it's been going great and reveals that he's even made a few friends. He asks for an update on their revenge operations, so Ellie says they're very close and everything will be in place with just a little more time. Light tells her to keep it up and says she's free to use whatever supplies she needs. He tells the others to continue doing their jobs and says he's really going to save her, the miserable look on Sasha's face. Sullivan and Gilbert are discussing the black motley on the 3rd floor when Sullivan gets up. When he returns, he's shocked to see Gilbert dead, and Kaido angrily says it's insulting that he made him wait like this. Sullivan angrily remarks that Kaido must have used a magic spell of some kind, but when Kaido sees that he's not paying him attention, he starts stomping on Gilbert's head. Sullivan remarks that he has to somehow escape and report this to the Adventurers Guild. He unleashes a smoke bomb and starts running away, remarking that he'll make sure to file a report with the guild. However, he's suddenly struck down as Yannick reminds Kaido that he asked for alive humans, not dead ones. Kaido agrees to be more careful next time, but warns that any of these worms who dare to strike back against him are getting ground into meat. At the guild, Nimumu demands that Light's rank be increased, so the receptionist hurriedly says they just made a special exception the other day to promote him from him straight to DF, and there's nothing us pals she can do since he first registered of time as has passed since as an adventurer. However, she suggests that it could be done if they pulled off another big feat. At the inn, Light sees that there's an adventurer killer on the loose and believes this could do the trick. Gold suggests that Light could pull a card to make hunting the killer easier, but Light says his cards are randomized, so he doubts they could get that lucky. They suddenly sense something coming, and a portal appears in front of them before an injured Mia falls in front of them. Light hurriedly catches her in shock as her wish bracelet breaks. Light quickly heals Mia and checks her memories to see what happened. In the dungeon, Mia's party had been told there was an adventurer killer on the loose, so they should leave quickly. They packed up their camp and set off to get as far away as possible, but the leader realized this was going to be rough after all the walking they did during the day. They were only able to make it halfway when they suddenly ran into Kaido's party. Maya suggested alerting them as well, so they suggested that they consider leaving the dungeon since it's dangerous for everyone right now. Yannick thanked them for filling them in, and Kaido muttered that he never expected the peons would react so quickly. Kaido took out his sword, declaring that they're the last batch of bugs he's going to squash today. The leader hurriedly told Maya to run away and said they'd buy her time to escape. Kaido swiftly slashed through their bodies and decided to use Mia for his pleasure now. However, her big brother warily got up and remembered what Golden had taught him, warily muttering that battles are all about creativity and skill. He distracted Kaido with his sword and bashed him in the face, shocking him. Infuriated, Kaido stabbed him in the stomach, so Yannick hurriedly told him to go after Mia, since things would get complicated if the guild learned about them. Kaido cornered Mia and said she should be happy she's going to be used by the hero, but Mia angrily declared that he was nothing but a spineless loser and a bully. Kaido frustratingly told her to shut up and attacked her with grandiose, but Mia, who was wishing to reach Light and tell him about this, suddenly disappeared. Yannick is shocked to hear that Mia teleported out of nowhere and says there's no way a human would have something that valuable. He realizes they're in deep trouble. If she reaches the guild and spills the beans about them, word will spread to the Elven Queendom, and they'll figure out where the stolen Grandius has gone. However, he hurriedly tells Kaido to get a hold of himself, saying that he just needs to finish his research to help Kaido surpass his level limit and solve their problems. Kaido agrees and says they need to hurry, but Light unexpectedly appears in front of them. He bends down and closes Jimra and Wordy's eyes, but Gold tells him Maya's brother. Elio still has signs of life in him, so Light heals his wounds and questions why these kids had to suffer such injustice. He frustratingly says it's too late to change anything now, but maybe, under different circumstances, they all could have grown to become close friends. He turns around to face the elves and tells them he hasn't told the guild anything. Hearing this, Kaido starts laughing and sees that he just has to kill them to get off scot-free. Kaido happily says things always go his way because he's a hero, but Light mutters that those are pretty big words for a scumbag and declares that they're both his to smite. He won't let the guild have them. They'll suffer for what they did and more. So much so that they'll be begging for death, and he swears upon his name that once all is said and done, he'll tear the life from them with his own hands. He orders Gold and Nimumu to stay out of this and starts walking towards Kaido and Yannick. Kaido tries madly attacking Light, but he easily deflects his attacks and strikes him in the stomach, telling him to do a bit more than that unless he wants to get accidentally killed. Kaido hurriedly tries attacking him with Grandius, but Light is still unharmed, shocking Yannick. Kaido suddenly reveals that he was born with the blood of a maestro in him, and reveals that he's called a sub-maestro, surprising Light. Light tells Gold and Nimumu there's been a change of plans. They're taking these guys to the Abyss. Gold and Nimumu decide to take Yannick down, so he suddenly unleashes his human-monster hybrids, and Light is shocked to see Sullivan's face on one of them. As Nimumu and Gold face off against the trolls, they decide to not make them suffer any longer than they already have, so they incinerate them together. Shocked, Yannick says this can't be happening before Nimumu suddenly kicks him, making him fall unconscious. Light asks Kaido why he's backing down now, when he's the one who insisted on a fight. Hearing this, Kaido remembers Elio's expression and angrily tells him to stop looking down on him. He uses the ultimate form of Grandius and tries attacking him, but Light easily dodges it. Kaido says he won't look so cocky when it actually hits him, so Light allows him to try it out and doesn't move. However, Grandius still isn't able to harm him since it's so useless. Light swiftly breaks it and strikes Kaido away. Stunned, Kaido desperately asks to be let go, so Light questions why he's giving up after just that, despite claiming he was a hero. He says real heroes are like Elio, Jimra, and Wordy, who threw themselves at him just to protect Maya. He offers Kaido one chance and says if he can so much as scratch him, he'll let him go. Kaido hurriedly tries to run away and tells himself this must be some kind of nightmare, but Light shoots his leg and says he's no hero. All he does is run like a spineless coward. He apologizes to Wordy and Jimra and decides to bury them in the abyss, since this area is infested with monsters. He teleports Kaito and Yannick to the throne room and tells the girls what they've done, so they ask him to just say the word and swear they'll make them suffer, so Light says nobody gets to kill them until he's learned everything they know. He tells Gold to heal Elio, while he and Nimumu go lay Jimra and Wordy to rest. Yannick and Kaido hurriedly beg for mercy, but Light asks what they said to the people who begged them, declaring that they'll get the same treatment. Later, Mia wakes up and asks what happened, so Light says they were able to save Elio, but not Gimra or Wordy. He gives her their last remains, so she starts crying and thanks him. The receptionist happily tells Light they'll promote him to the C rank now. Back at the inn, Elio and Mia tell Light they're going to quit adventuring and return to their hometown. Mia says it was her friends who gave her the courage to become an adventurer, and Elio agrees that continuing without them doesn't feel right to him, so he wants to take them back home where they belong. Light asks about Mia attending the Magecraft Academy, but she says she's to self-study instead since she doesn't want to be an amateur the next time they meet. She tearfully asks if they'll get a chance to see each other again someday, so Light smilingly reassures her. As he watches them go, he remarks that he'll tell them the truth when the day comes and will take them to visit Gimra and Wordy's graves. He goes to the Abyss and asks what the result of the investigation has been, so Ellie says she used her forbidden mage craft to pry into Kaido and Yannick's heads. The sub-mastro that Kaido spoke of is a general term for those with a blood relation to the Mastro and Maiads, that there's a belief that the world could end if there's no maestro. As Sasha is on her way back on a carriage, a human accidentally drops some boxes in front of their carriages, so she annoyingly says they're good for nothing. She suddenly notices Light walking into an alleyway and hurries after him, wondering if her eyes were playing tricks on her. She reaches a dead end and sees a page on the wall, signed by Light, stating that he's waiting at the tower. Frustrated, she realizes he's going to ruin everything that's happened since then. As Light and Ellie are standing on a rooftop, she smilingly says does, she'll make sure to inflict so much pain and suffering on Sasha that it's seared into the very fiber of her being. The White Knights discuss how that idiotic, self-proclaimed hero, Kaito, ran around with a light elf killing adventures before he got beaten by a human. As the knights, Sharpat, Must, Nia, and Kia are arguing about whether they should kill the slave instead of tormenting him. However, the captain suddenly silences them and orders Sharpat to end it. He kills the human in one blow, after which the captain says Kaito was a member of the White Knights no matter what, so they have a duty to settle things. As Sasha is sleeping, she suddenly hears something, so she gets up to see a giant tower near her mansion and wonders if that's where Light is waiting. As an elf is transporting human slaves, he's shocked to see a hellhound in the monster and hurriedly runs away. At a bar, some elves discuss how the Queendom's forces have put up a job, asking for information about the huge tower. In the crowd, a pair of men ask Namumu if she wants to party up with them and tries to flirt with her, but she says Light is her only master. Light says she's an irreplaceable member of their party, so the guy annoyingly tries to attack him, but Light casts a lightning spell near him as a warning and they leave, saying this'll make them famous around here. A party of elves are using a small girl as bait and decide to just leave her and run off if they run into a strong monsters, since they just need to score some info. However, a hellhound swiftly chops them all up. Shocked, the girl collapses, but the hound just sniffs her and walks away, surprising her. Some men suddenly approach, so the girl thinks she can be made a slave again, but they heal her injuries and ask if she wants any water and start discussing what they'll do to take care of her. One of the men informs Oyuki that they'll call her back after they reach safe haven, so she agrees. The girl thanks the men for helping her, so assure her she'll be alright now. As they're walking, they can't comprehend that elves use humans as fodder and realize all other races have just lost their moral fiber. Meanwhile, Sasha frustratingly mutters that there are monsters above level 1000 around the tower, so it's impossible for her to get there. But if she asks for help from the White Knights, they'll figure out that Light is still alive, so she needs to figure out a way to get there to put the final nail in Light's coffin. The Chancellor asks the White Knights captain, Hardy, what he thinks they should do, so he says he doesn't think they should send the knights when they have no information on the enemy. Queen Lif says she agrees with Hardy on this matter and orders them to offer even more rude money to gather more information. Later, Hardy thanks his mother, Queen Lif, for taking his side since he won't have to waste his men on a foolish plan now. They discuss how the Archfiend would lead to a hero being born from the human race. Lif hopes they can make the humans go extinct by then, so Hardy asks about the potential maestro that popped up a while ago. Lif says he turned out to be a dud and was eliminated, so he wishes he could have done that since humans don't deserve to live. As Light, Gold, and Namumu are walking in the market, Sasha suddenly recognizes his voice and orders him to take off his mask. Light warns them to not do anything and tells Sasha he has burn marks, so she slaps the mask off of his face. Sasha is shocked to see that Light's face is covered with burns and hurriedly tells him to cover it up right now. As she walks off, she says he's better off dead with a face like that. Light thanks Namumu and Gold for not stepping in, and they head into the forest. As they're running in the forest, Light sees the men from before following them and tells them to stop already. Gold says doing stuff like this is going to lead them to their death, but the men tell them they should be honored that they're going to get killed by elves. Light sighs and tells Mira to take care of them, so she suddenly appears behind the men and angrily says they made their choice when they hurled all those nasty insults at her dear master. Now they'll pay for it with death. The men start desperately screaming as Mira picks them up and starts swallowing them with her hands. Once she's done, ice heat. Suzu and Jack arrive as well, so Light tells them to lead the way. The ladies are infuriated when they hear Jack not referring to Light as master, so he tells Jack that's enough and calms them down. They reach the tower and meet Nazuna, Oyuki, and Ellie, who happily greet Light. They teleport to the throne room and Ellie asks if she can refresh everyone on what their plan is. Light agrees, so she says the idea is to congratulate Sasha on her marriage by treating her to revenge. After that, they'll have a series of battles to capture the White Knights, crippling the Elven Queendom and allowing them to learn more about the Maestro. At the same time, they can also probe in to neighboring countries to get more intel on them, with this tower acting as their base of operations until the end. While that's going on, they'll have a shadow ranking up the Black Motley's adventurer rank. Sasha tries to get close to the tower, but she sees a dragon guarding it, so she decides to head back and wonders how she can kill Light before anybody finds out. Ellie says she's positive she'll come back with the White Knights. Then they'll pit their strongest warriors against the White Knights for Light's entertainment. Sasha reports that there are several monsters around the tower and a dragon inside it, so the Chancellor asks Hardy if he'll agree to go with his White Knights now, and Hardy agrees. Later, the Chancellor tells Sasha she can go with the White Knights, but tells her to go and fetch something from her father's collection if she doesn't want to be a hindrance to the knights. Light and Ellie watch the knights and Sasha entering the forest, and he says he can't even hide how eager this is making him. When the knights get to the tower, several hellhounds come out of it, so Sharpat says he can't take all of them, but he could lead the charge by making a good dent in their number. However, Hardy says the dragon is their main concern, so they should avoid as many battles as they can since it's time for the adventurers they hired to make a diversion. The hellhounds notice smoke in the distance and rush towards it, so the knights enter the tower. However, as they're running, they suddenly step on a huge teleportation trap and get separated into different groups. As Nia and Kia are wondering what they should do, Mera and Ice Heat appear and Mera asks if she should just kill them herself. Ice Heat reminds her that it's poor form to hog all the prey. Mera says they don't pose much of a challenge, but Ice Heat tells her to take this seriously, even if they're second-rate. Hearing this, Nia and Kia rush towards them to attack and declare that they'll slice them into pieces. Sharpat is stunned by how cute Suzu is and asks for her name but her gun. Locke tells him its partner doesn't talk, surprising him. Locke introduces him and him, but says it doesn't really matter since they're about to wipe the floor with him. Suzu is creeped out by Sharpat, so Locke communicates this to him. Sharpat asks what her type is, so Locke describes Light for her and tells her that ship isn't sailing, so she annoyingly smacks it. As Mera and Ice Heat dodge Nia and Kia's attacks, she asks Ice Heat if she thinks they're good, but she annoyingly says they're complete pushovers before Mera bites her own arm off and regenerates it, shocking them. As Nazuna is facing off against Hardy, he doesn't start attacking, so she decides to go first and effortlessly slashes through his entire left side, destroying a wall in the tower. Ellie annoyingly fixes it and says she's cast a spell so that none of the knights actually die. Hardy slowly gets up and apologizes for not taking her seriously. He uses Silent to debuff her and remove all sound and remarks that he's going to attack her with his full might, but Nazuna unexpectedly puts her sword away and readies her fists. Hardy notices her getting anxious and thinks he's won, but she suddenly smashes him into the wall, instantly taking him down, after which she reveals that she was anxious since she was trying to contain her power as much as she could to not destroy the wall again. Mikkel and Sasha enter the throne room, so Light reveals that it's him, shocking her. However, when Mikkel realizes he's the kid Sasha almost killed years ago, he starts laughing and tells her they can gain even more fame now, both for killing him and taking down this tower. Light steps towards them and tells Ellie and Oyuki to not do anything, saying this is his revenge. Sasha says she hasn't come along and summons the Archangel's Ocarina. Light easily defeats one of them, but Sasha reveals that she can summon them as many times as she wants. Light then attacks Mikhail, but he reveals that his shield is extremely rare and buffs the Archangels with it. Sasha cockily asks Light if he feels frustrated that he's about to be squashed like a bug, but Light's starving and summons Lamon's the extra rarity god Requiem Gungner. He tells Mikhail and Sasha to sit back and enjoy this course of despair. Sasha desperately tries to order the Archangels to attack Light, but none of their attacks work on him as he slowly starts walking towards them. Light asks Sasha if she really thought she'd kill him with such a cheap parlor trick and asks why she's not trying harder, declaring that she should try and stop him before he comes and rips her guts out. With only the last Archangel remaining, Sasha orders it to attack again, but Light swiftly kills it. Mikhail hurriedly tells Sasha to summon them again, but the ocarina shockingly disintegrates. Light says it's funny that he just flexed this thing's power a little, and it erased the ocarina from existence. Sasha and Mikhail still convince themselves that this was just a stroke of luck, and Mikhail says his shield of retribution will throw everything back at him, so Light decides to see what he can do against this, and destroys the shield with Gungner. Mikhail hurriedly asks Sasha if she's alright, and says Light has to be a Mastro, as much as he hates the idea of them running away. They have to report this to the Queendom, so Light should consider himself off the hook until they can end this at another time and place. He uses his item, Skyrunner Wings, but it doesn't activate, so Light reveals that teleportation doesn't work in this tower. Still, Mikkel tells him to let them go since Hardy alone can take care of them alone. However, Light instructs the others to come in now, so they enter with the beaten-up knights. Stunned, Mikkel hurriedly tells Light he has a proposal for him and suggests that they join forces to take over the queendom. Sasha asks what he's saying, so he angrily tells her to shut up and declares that he was never happy getting engaged to a filthy commoner like her. Light asks if he should kill this woman for him, so Mikkel hurriedly agrees. Light orders Ellie to go ahead, so she angrily comes forward, saying she's been barely holding herself back all this time from going on a killing spree. Mikkel tries praising Light so that he can be spared, but Ellie binds him with her spell, Dorn Fesseln, and starts torturing him. Sasha desperately begs Light to let her live and tries to seduce him, but Light shoots her in the leg with an arrow and lets Mira's Chimeras free on her, saying she can give Gera company while being tortured in the abyss. After that, Light unseals Gungnir and suddenly falls unconscious. Later, Ellie is worried if he'll be alright since he had combined his souls with her, Mai, and Oyuki to keep Gungnir sealed. However, Light later wakes up fine and asks Mai about what's happening on the surface. Ellie invades the Elven Queendom with an army of dragons and effortlessly kills the Queen's guards before deciding to check her memories. She declares that from now on, all humans will be freed and will have absolute autonomy over this queendom. Later, Light goes to the top of the tower with his summons and sees that all the human slaves they've freed are doing well in the town they made. He says he initially was thinking of burning this entire world, but now he wants to make it a place where everyone can live in peace and happiness. He remarks that he's not sure of how he's going to do this, but he knows he'll find the right path with his friends at his side.